So I wasn't really planning on starting a G1 Transformers collection, but I picked up a little job lot and then felt it would be rude not to pick up Twin Twist on the left there at the same time. So I have to say I did get a little bit teary opening my job lot, because Transformers were a big toy for me growing up. There's no two ways about it. And I was kind of thinking about why did it make me feel like that? Because, you know, they're bits of plastic if you're being hard-nosed about it. But the simple reality is that Hasbro played a bit of a blinder back in the 80s, because not only did we have the toys in rather attractive packaging with tech specs on the back of the boxes that gave you very detailed information about the backstory of the robots, which meant that for someone like me, the imagination then starts kicking in. You start developing your own backstory off the bits of information that you've been given. But not only did we have that, I read the comics in the UK right from the get-go, more or less, and we also had a cartoon being thrown at us. So basically, if you were at all into Transformers, you were getting hit with multiple media sources at the same time, all of which resulted in you getting Transformers ingrained in your brain from a very, very early age. So I'm going to run through the guys that I picked up, just to sort of show you what I've got, obviously, for your interest. And I'm also going to show you a couple of entries in the comics which might help to explain why these guys were sort of, you know, of interest to me. Not that I had much choices, it was a job lot, obviously, but and there might even be a special guest in the middle of it all, but I'll come to that. So these guys are jump starters. They are actually the least transformy of almost all the Transformers, quite frankly, because all they do, if they were working properly, is pop up. But I had him, and I had him. So if I put a Brawn next to them for you, you can see that they are substantially bigger than a Minibot, but they're not huge. So when they fold out, they are about twice his height. Now, interestingly, Topspin and Twin Twist were not in the original cartoons that I can recall. Shout up in the comments if you know different. But I know them more from the comics where they appeared. I don't remember them from the cartoons. Maybe they came out in Generation 2 cartoons or something, I don't know. But I have this sneaking suspicion. Maybe they were, because this chap here is a Takara. I don't know if the webcam will pick that up for you. I'm having to use a webcam for reasons I won't go into at the moment. But basically, he's a Takara. So whether or not there was a licensing issue with them appearing in the cartoon, I don't know. But I mean, obviously they don't have very earthy forms either, so that might have been why they got left out. Because until they got onto Cybertron, you probably wouldn't have been able to justify using them, I guess. So and they were part of the Wreckers. I'll talk about the Wreckers in a minute. But basically, the idea was you wound them back, and then they jumped up and then were robots. Simples. I quite like this Twin Twist. He's got nice stickers. I don't know if his sort of heat rub badge is going to work, but yeah, a little bit actually, a little bit. It's very hard to see. So the idea was that, a bit like sort of Battle Beasts and other similar things of the day, that if you rubbed one of these stickers vigorously enough, you would be able to see the. Yeah, there we go. You can see the Autobot symbol appearing there, or the Decepticon symbol appearing, obviously, depending on what the affiliation was. Now, so the wheels are still working. See, that was him, not me. There we go. So so the idea was that they would sort of race into battle and then spring up and then flip out like that. So, you know, I think most people would sort of consider those to be sort of quite kind of almost like brothers, I suppose, because they were very similar spring up mechanisms. I like Topspin because he had sort of these little weapons that I felt were sort of built in. So even if he didn't have his gun, You know, I felt he could still shoot at stuff, and I felt that he could fly as well because of his wings, which meant that someone could actually chase the Decepticon jets. So you know, I think they were quite good value considering they would have been one of the cheaper versions that you could get at the time. Lo and behold, I have a gun for Twin Twist. So Twin Twist is actually my only complete G1 Transformer in my possession these many years later. So I was quite chuffed that he had a gun, because I know that does add a significant amount of value to them at the end of the day. You know, it's just, but it's quite a nice beefy gun as well. He's only a little guy really, but his gun's pretty sort of beefy. And well, let's test the theory. I'm pretty sure that Topspin would be able to handle his gun, because they are very similar molds. I'm not sure that it doesn't look better on Topspin, to be honest. But yeah, so they that works pretty nicely actually. So in the heat of battle, they could probably sort of double wield each other's guns if need be, which would be quite cool. So quite nice examples of them. I think they're reasonably clean. The stickers are in, you know, reasonable condition on both of them, so I'm pretty happy with those. Him I got separate, he was part of the job lot, so you know I can't really complain. Now this guy I don't think I ever had. This is a guy by the name of Breakdown, and he was one of the Stunticons. The Stunticons were part of a combiner team on the Decepticon side who combined to form Menasor. Now, he's a bit of a junker lot. He's got a touch of spares and repairs about him, because as you can see, he should have a little bit more of a door there. So something somewhere has gone horribly wrong with him. But he's a fairly sort of standard. I mean, unusually he's a Decepticon, but he is at the same time a car. And the combiner teams actually did sort of even things out somewhat in that respect, because I've actually got no idea how to transform him, by the way. Even for a G1, I can probably get this horribly wrong. But okay, there we go. So these guys actually kind of even things up with the Autobots a bit. So the Autobots got an aerial-based team in Superion and the aerial bots, whereas the Decepticons got these guys, the Stunticons, who could challenge the Autobots on the roads. So, you know, it did kind of, there we go, that's better. So it just sort of evened things up, and basically these guys, their heads. So he would sort of transform most of the way back into his car form, and then his head. I mean, you'll probably be familiar with this if you've got the modern versions, because there are, of course, combiner wars in the modern edition of Transformers that I'm vaguely aware of. So basically, their heads would pop down, and that would then stick into the main body of Motormaster, was it? And he became an arm for Menasor, which was their combined form. So the idea was that you were encouraged to buy 5 toys in order to form the big toy. That was the basic. That was the selling point. So that's Breakdown. No special meaning for me, because I had Defensor, who was an Autobot combiner. That was probably one of the last G1 Transformer collections I really got. So let's have a look at another Minibot. Now this chap again he was one of the second issue Autobot Minibots, and he was Paraglide, and he saw quite a lot of action in the Transformers cartoon, I think in the sort of second season, and I think they just kind of appeared without explanation. But in the comics, I think that they came in from Cybertron as a group at one point. So people like Beachcomber and guys like that got introduced as their toys came out, basically. But he is one of the rare examples of a sort of it's like a pure Autobot jet, just by himself for the sake of it. And I can show you how he transforms. But he's quite nice because his arms were quite articulated for one of the smaller models, and he does form quite a convincing A10 Thunderbolt tank buster, which I appreciated because I did know a little bit about planes even back then. So I sort of appreciated that they'd gone for a sort of a vaguely believable plain transformation for him, and he does. I mean, you know, that works for me as a sort of a plain toy as much as the robot. So I did sort of appreciate that as a concept, and it, as I say, you know, it gave the Autobots a teeny tiny bit of air power, which helped them get around as well. So there's him, and got this chap as well, and I'll show you a bit of a comic with him, which will explain part of the reason why I like the fact that I got him. And this guy is called Outback, and he transforms into a Jeep, and you may be finding him somewhat familiar. That might be because I just showed you Brawn by way of comparison with the jump starters, and oh look, he's virtually identical to Brawn, apart from his body shape slightly different, but his legs are exact mould copies of Brawn's, except they're a different colour. So yes, in those time-honoured traditions, basically they took Brawn, they recoloured him, and you know, even the arms are slightly different, in fairness, but you can see sort of alongside one another they are basically identical. But Outback here did get, actually unusually for a Minibot, he actually had a weapon, and that weapon mounted on here. Now this one didn't come with a weapon, unfortunately, because this was a loose job lot. Just, you know, I don't think he even knew which ones they were particularly, so I just got that. But the advantage of getting that sort of job lot is that you don't have to pay a lot for it, so there was that. So yeah, so, and again, you know, even down to the back there, they're absolutely identical. And you had a few of those. There were a few instances in the second release of Minibots where they just recoloured the original release of the Minibots. Ironically, they're both missing arms. What were the odds of that? They're both missing arms. I actually thought I might be able to pinch one arm to put on him, but they're different arms, so that's not going to work for me. Now, the reason that, and this is where I come back to this, you know, why do you sort of remember them so much? But part of the reason I do is because of strips like this. And this is from the UK comic. That's a bit close up for you, but you can see here that's Optimus Prime carrying a wounded Outback, and basically they got a whole sort of strip for 2 or 3 weeks with Prime looking after a wounded Outback, who basically was helping Prime when people thought he was an imposter on Cybertron. So, you know, for a little random toy to get that much attention in the comic storyline encouraged me to get him, because it meant that I had some of his backstory. So if you were so minded and the imagination was part of your thing, then, you know, you immediately got more backstory than you got just from the back of his, you know, his card. So that sort of thing I really appreciated, and it was quite dark. I mean, basically, poor old Outback here is bleeding to death, because he's been clobbered by a Guardian unit. And in fact, I think if I turn back a little bit, you'll see here. So even in the comic, you see he had this gun. Then that's his Cybertronian form. It's not the form that we got him in. So his robot form is the same, but his Cybertronian form obviously we didn't get. And interestingly, you will see here, this guy is actually Twin Twist. This is a group called the Wreckers. And that guy is actually Twin Twist. And if I carry on through these pages a little bit, you will see at some point, if I can get there, yeah. So there's Twin Twist again in the background there, and that is Topspin. You can see from his little wing there. So again, it's all, you know, all this lot actually does tie in quite nicely just to that one comic, and you'll see here that the Wreckers got their own book ultimately, but this is actually a modern Wreckers book. That those pages that I just showed you were from the original 80s Transformers comic. This is a much more modern book, so much more sort of modern stylings, and Springer et al. are in this one too. And as you can see, you know, that's a very, very sort of shiny, graphic-y book, and I do love this stuff. I haven't got anywhere near all of them at all, but, you know, it's nice to see those guys again. Who else did I get? Yeah, so on the Wreckers theme, this is Springer. And Springer is a triple changer, and he's a car and a helicopter. Now, inevitably, because it was a loose lot, I've got no helicopter blades there. I've never even tried to transform him, but you can see he's got car wheels there. So this was, I think this was probably his car form, and I've never actually tried to transform him, but I can see his. Let's have a little go because he's got. So let's have a guess at this. So fists there, foldy down bit there. There's his head. I had Astro Train as a triple changer. I never actually had Springer. This is the first Springer I have ever possessed. I don't know. Where are your legs going? He seems to have a huge amount of stickerage going, but I don't want to put too much pressure on him. That's obviously where his tail rotors would have been. Is that? I mean, one of the reasons I didn't pick him up might well be because he was a bit naff. I mean, it was the one downside actually of them doing this. There we go, doing this on a comics basis, because of course the characters in the comics, because they didn't have the limitations of the day in terms of plastic and so on, meant that the comics looked a damn sight. The comics characters looked a damn sight better than the toys did. So that is somewhat ironic. I mean, these days, obviously, the toys are incredibly articulated, and I struggle with the modern toys because I'm far too old with far too poor an eyesight to be able to sort of handle the modern toys. And I just oh, there we go. Okay, he's a little bit stiff because he's aged like me. Oh, I don't want to try and do that anymore because that's just going to break him. And he probably is breaky. Oh, I've done it. I've freed him up. There we go. Okay. I still can't pull this leg down enough though. And I'm sure you're probably supposed to be able to, but I don't think I can. Oof. Okay, there we go. So that might be what he's supposed to look like. I'm not quite convinced myself, but yeah, that's probably something like, I don't know. But anyway, yeah, so that's kind of Springer. And Springer was quite a big character in the comics because he's in that Wreckers Saga book I just showed you. And if you look here, he's at the top of the pile. So that is him there. So he was the leader of the Wreckers, and the Wreckers were an elite group of Autobot warriors. They were like a special team, basically. And they basically kicked bottom quite hard a lot of the time. And they were made up of various different characters, some of which you just couldn't get in the UK as toys. I'm sure you could do now. I'm sure that there's a sort of a Wreckers series that you could get independently these days. But that's him. Now, the major reason why I picked up the lot was this chap. And this, of course, is Sideswipe. And Sideswipe was in G1 Transformers from the get-go. He had a brother called Sunstreaker, who looked very, very similar, but was yellow. I never owned Sideswipe. He was in all the cartoons, all the comics. Quite a big character. And, very much a sort of long-time close ally of Optimus Prime, of course. Do you know, I can't actually remember if he turned up in the modern movies particularly, strangely. But in the comics and of my era and all that sort of good stuff, he was very much in there all the time. So I'm going to try and transform him. I think I remember how to do it. I did have Sunstreaker, but I did not have him, and I'm slightly terrified. One thing I will say about him actually, and I think I once dissed the Transformers compared to the GoBots for metal content, but he is heavy. He his back here, all of this section is proper die cast, so it's no wonder he survived so well, because he's definitely pretty strong there. So here we go. I thought I was going to be able to pop out his legs as a first step, but I may have been wrong, because I thought they came down first. No, that's right. So you have to do that. Comes that way. try to get his arms out if I can, but I'm convinced his arms won't come until I've got his legs down, but I can't get his legs down. There we go. Okay. It's coming back to me. It's coming back to me. So no weapons, of course, because they just aren't. Although again, I have seen weapons being sold separately on eBay, so that's probably not an unusual circumstance for him to not have the weapons. How on earth am I supposed to get his head around from there? I can see his head. I just don't know if I can get it out. Perhaps if that's it. There we go. These were designed for smaller, younger fingers than mine. There we go. He's out. There it is. Really good heads, though. I mean, the head, the mouldings and stuff are still impressive. There we go. Okay. So maybe he's. Oh yeah. There we go. Done it. I freed it up. I think I had to separate his legs slightly. And the thing is, he is really cool. I mean, that is a pretty cool transformation, because he's a good looking car toy to start with, and then he actually transforms pretty reasonably as well. So I mean, you've got, that's pretty cool. It's a shame his stickers are quite so worn, but I'm sure you could get a replacement sticker and so on. He's got his little that Lamborghini sticker there. But to say he's as old as he is and he can still transform and not break apart, that's pretty impressive stuff. So yeah, I mean, it's like it's just so strange. It's literally like 40 years on since he probably first came out, and yeah, I've just picked him up now. eBay's cool. It's just the proverbial time machine, isn't it? It really, really is. And last and possibly least, depending on your point of view, in amongst this random job lot was him. That's not a Transformer. That's a GoBot. And that GoBot is Turbo. And Turbo featured, just like Scooter does, in the opening sequence of the GoBots cartoon. And like the Transformer Minibots, whilst he's more metal than them, of course, but he's also lacking a tyre, unfortunately, which I hadn't really noticed. But anyway, I wasn't getting him for collectability. I was just collecting him because he happened to be in the lot, really, as much as anything else. But basically, 2 seconds flat, and that's it. That's his robot form. Straightforward, flip you overhead, and you're there. But you see, other kids who didn't know who he was would just think you had a toy car in your pocket, because the toy car is very, very convincing as a toy ar, and he just pops out like that. I may have had him originally. I can't quite remember, but I may have had him originally. But I do remember them thinking that they were really sensible like that, because you could sort of transform them probably that little bit faster than Transformer Minibots, because they were just that little bit simpler to do for the most part anyway. And he could certainly just, arms in, legs up, head flip, boosh, done, and off he went. And ironically, from my point of view, as I say, being sort of imagination driven, they were always portrayed as being able to fly in the cartoons, whereas the Transformers Autobots couldn't. So they always had a bit of a... Well, actually, no, they could sometimes, actually. I'm trying to think whether or not they could or not. Tell me in the comments if they could. I can't remember if they sometimes could and sometimes couldn't for some reason. I don't know. But I think in the comics they couldn't. Yeah, maybe in the comics they couldn't, but in the cartoon they could. But in the comics, the Autobots were not all flyers, definitely. So anyway, yeah. So that was quite a bonus. I was annoyed because I'd missed out on another auction where I would have ended up with more GoBots, just to sort of fill out the range a bit. But it's quite nice that I've picked him up. So I've now got about a grand total of about 4 GoBots to my name, and yet I've also got a really nice little selection of Transformers in various states of batteredness. But I'm quite happy with that. I don't mind that because I haven't paid through the nose for them. And given that I'm not trying to collect them in a serious fashion, I really don't mind. They still remind me of time gone by, which is the point, isn't it? So yeah, so I think that's it. I've been working on a rather longer video tonight in between times, which I'll I'll get out in due course, but I need a couple more items yet, he says mysteriously. So I'll show you that as soon as it's ready. But I hope you've enjoyed that little trip down memory lane. Please do like and subscribe and all that good stuff. And I will catch you again. Cheers for now.